abandoned ship.
We go!
And I persuade you to... It's a tradition.
Jar Jar, homie. Before the Separatists attack.
Hey! This part!
Bounty hunting is a complicated. You want some soup? Free.
Another happy landing.
We got this Reid and Bryce today.
Always a fun time.
How's it going, guys?
We've got to talk about Rage Online because, of course, a lot of people familiar with long time since, and of course, there's another one, Dave's.
Finally, live action. Waiting to see this for a long. All these characters, if you want to sort of start with a celebration.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Character for years, and there's like the whole Bo-Katan and.
Oh, the name's out now.
Yeah,
Guess
we
we're
don't need
holding
to
back.
go through this. Yeah, I don't know. It's pretty. I don't know. Again, we can, but like I wrote like that. I kind of wanted to bring up
a list or an essay.
Just a list.
This like the short answer where they're like, "This is a short answer, 3 pages."
I'd be for the case, but it was a pretty cool episode.
Oh, I loved it.
It was fantastic. It was great. Bring back all of the water world that's in like the aquatic species.
Yeah.
And pretty sweet because like it was or Rebels, but finally live action, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. What about you, Bryce?
Yeah, I don't know what I like most. I think I found that the scale was really good in this, like the scale of like the ship in general, and I don't know, and just the way it, like the episode felt like it was more based on a real setting, if that makes sense at all.
Is in like on this planet or?
Yeah, it just I don't know. Like I really dug the planet, and I dug like at the start, you know, like the landing sequence when you get the person being like, "Hey, like,
the guy's like,
you gotta slow down."
Yeah.
Like it definitely felt like a real airport. Like
I
don't
agree.
know.
Like it felt like
a lot of airport references in this
episode. It almost feels like you're saying, and the first time I watched it, this was my thoughts as well. Is it almost felt like a story that you could pull out of like a D&D campaign.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Like with a heist. And
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. What about you, Reid?
Yeah, I really liked it. It was a great episode. Like, yeah, I loved the setting. It was awesome to see some of the OG aliens and stuff like that doing what, you know, amphibious aliens do, or more or less amphibious. But yeah, I like the setting, and then like the transition to the ship and stuff like that, and the stuff we got to see with the ship. That was like they had some great shots of the ship. Like it was like I really liked that it wasn't just like, oh yeah, we're just gonna sneak in onto the ship while it's still in port, and then just like you know, the rest of what we got to saw was just like inside the ship and like tight corridors and stuff like that. Like they jetpacked onto the ship while it was moving, and then they had their little piratey action go on. But yeah, it was pretty cool.
Right. Yeah, no, it was a lot of cool stuff that popped up in this one. Like the first thing that came up that I kind of pointed out at least was at the docks, they've got this big, huge, like, I guess in our world it would be like a big crane, but they've kind of got a repurposed like AT-AT that's just walking around in the water. And I thought that was really cool because, I mean, of course, like in a New Hope, like it kind of calls back to a lot of the traditions that they had in that movie as far as repurposing a lot of stuff. And in general, I think a lot of the technology around that time is supposed to be like old junk, right? So I like the idea that they've been like, this is now 5 years later, you know, since the Emperor died and all this stuff. Well, did he? I don't know. But yeah, it's been 5 years, and it's like this stuff is unused, maybe crap like lying around, not
just
working
abandoned
anymore. Yeah, abandoned from a previous war that's just not going on anymore, and you know, people repurpose that stuff.
That immediately makes me think of when in Rebels, when we finally see like Captain Rex and Commander Wolf, and they repurposed the ATTE tank.
Yeah,
it's almost kind of like that same style, which is super
totally.
cool. It is something that seems really reoccurring in Star Wars.
Yeah, for sure. It's a tradition that just kind of follows through like everything, right? That's actually something that I didn't really get a lot of in like the newest films that came out, but aside from Rogue One and Solo, but yeah, it's something that they've really tried to kind of pronounce in this show a lot, like Anakin's pod racer being a speeder,
that's a good point. Yeah.
All that stuff, right? Like it's really cool to see all that stuff. So. Yeah, but anyway, in the beginning of this episode, did you guys catch any of that? Anything like that? Anything interesting?
Well, I think I spoke about this slightly when we were watching it, but the first episode, the new frog alien, like I was kind of iffy on it. Had some cool stuff, but I was like, it's this new alien. Didn't think too much of it. But I actually thought in this episode, seeing it in context with the other aquatic alien species, it actually just fit in like super well. Like if it was in the original trilogy, I could totally see that. Like, it was just transitioned in super smooth.
Yeah, I mean, it was super weird to see an amphibious like frog alien.
Yeah,
on
exactly.
Tatooine. I was just like, really? Like you're
of
here?
all places.
Yeah. Like okay, whatever.
Yeah, the physical design of that species is actually pretty cool. Like it just feels very Star Wars, very George. Yeah. So like, big name drop, Bo-Katan, of course, like coming in almost right from the get-go in the episode. And it's pretty cool that they established this almost like right away, because for the last season or so of Mandalorian, I've been somewhat confused because in the animated series, if any of you guys have seen them, the Mandalorians are always removing their helmets.
Yeah, they are.
And they don't say this is the way or any of that stuff, right? And I've been like, for the last like year, I've been like, Dave, like what is up, man? Like
Bro,
you're the guy who came up with like half this stuff. Like why are we not? Why is there this big inconsistency?
Did you think they were retconning the Mandalorians, Josh?
Well, I not exactly, because I thought that we'd get more flashbacks or whatever. There's some explanation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
it's like Mando's group to me almost feels like the original Mandalorians that we kind of got in the old EU, as well as specifically in like the KOTOR games and stuff. Like they felt very in line with the Mandalorians you come across in the first KOTOR.
Yeah, for sure. And it's like Bo-Katan put it, like she kind of points out, it's like, oh, he's one of them. As soon as he states like, you took your helmet off, you're not real Mandalorians. And she's like, yeah, we are. Like, we were all born in Mandalore, fought in the Purge, and you're just like this cultist person. So I think it was pretty cool that she finally like clarifies it, for me at least, because she points out that he's a child of the Watch, and they're a cult of religious zealots that want to establish the ancient way, right? And the ancient way being like this super old school way of running Mandalore that I guess nobody really cares about anymore. But they still have this warrior culture that lives within them. But yeah, I think it was interesting that there's another kind of like group that's kind of splintered cell off of them that does this, right? Like they adopt people into their cult and just kind of adopt them as one.
Which is, again, that's what the traditional Mandalorians all did, right? In the EU, that's what they like. There was no race of Mandalorians. It was they generally would find kids that were abandoned in war-torn areas, and they would like adopt them, and then they would be raised Mandalorian. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's super cool that they have actually drawn off that stuff. And I don't know, that was like pretty much my favorite part of this episode, honestly, was that they actually cleared that up and made that a thing. Because the other thing is, like, when I thought back to the flashback scene when Din Djarin gets like taken by the Mandalorians in the first place, when he's like a really young kid, I'm pretty sure those Mandalorians had a Death Watch logo on.
Did they? I have to go back and check, because I was wondering that, because I was going to mention, like, it's interesting that she called him a member of the Watch, and obviously she would have actually known Death Watch from the Clone Wars series. So I didn't know if this was like a splinter cell of Death Watch, or if Death Watch changed their name. Because Death Watch in the show, they took their helmets off, like pre Vizsla, right?
Yeah, so. Exactly. Like pre Vizsla was the leader of Death Watch, and that's what they did. Like they just didn't care, right? They took their helmets off all the time. So,
but at the same time, they were also trying to establish the old ways, same as the Watch.
They were not like the ancient old ways, but they were trying to reestablish their culture as a warrior culture rather than what Satine believed as far as being a pacifist culture, right? So
they wanted to reestablish Mandalore, did they not? Because they had a queen, they didn't have a Mandalore, which was like a warrior king.
Well, anyone who basically is like the Mandalore is supposed to be like their leader, right? So I think that can be either race, because in a warrior culture, like they have both. But
I mean, like Satine wouldn't have been considered Mandalore, at least in the traditional sense.
No, not in the traditional sense. No, yeah, but I think Pre Vizsla was like going for that kind of, we're a warrior culture, this is what we deserve kind of thing. But I don't necessarily know if he was actually involved with this cultist. What I like to think though, because there's a bit of a small disconnect there between like there's this group called the Watch, and then of course we know Death Watch, right, from Clone Wars. But the only like connection that I think could happen between the two is after the Purge, when perhaps when Mandalore is taken or whatever by the Republic, taken back that is, a lot of those Death Watch Mandalorians that stayed with Maul, you know, in that final battle, you know, it makes me think maybe some of them actually got away. And I think maybe, because in that flashback sequence, you still see B2 battle droids and separatist, you know, droid, whatever, right? Yeah, so it makes me wonder if maybe he had a subset of people that maybe splinter celled off of Death Watch in that last moment, or maybe even before that. And kind of like Pre Vizsla, it's like, yeah, we're a warrior culture, we want to do this, but let's do it even better. Like, let's do it the old-fashioned, ancient way of doing things. Bring back that warrior culture, but let's bring back even more. Let's bring back the whole way.
Just because we can, from now on, no one's allowed to take off their helmet, all right? Starting now.
Yeah,
also,
yeah, exactly.
Let's just lose the death part. I think it's bad publicity. Let's just be
bad advertisement.
Yeah.
Let's go through a new renaming process.
Are you guys that Death Watch? No. We're the Watch. Give us a challenge.
We're not the Death Watch. We're the Watch, the one and only.
The Watch. We'll be watching.
Yeah.
Watch what you do, because that's our job.
Yeah. We're the Watch Mandalorians. Yeah, so it makes me think like maybe that's what actually happened. But of course, that small fact is not confirmed yet. But it makes me wonder, at some point in the future, maybe we'll get the answer to that. But yeah, very cool stuff. I don't know. What again, back to you guys. Is there something else that you maybe caught?
I was actually going to ask a question. I'm wondering about those two other Mandalorians. Are they new characters, or were they reoccurring as well? Because I didn't recognize them. I know they at least said the name of the other guy, but I'm not sure about the other woman.
Oh, like the two other Mandalorians that were with Bo-Katan?
Yeah.
They've never showed up before.
Okay, so they're new. I didn't know if
they're new characters. Yeah,
I'd seen her before.
Yeah, although someone on the Twitter sphere pointed out that there's a bit of a missed opportunity to make that guy Sabine's brother or something like that. There was something that was floating around, which is like, oh, that guy should have been this guy, and all they needed was a name change and would have been fine. And I was like, yeah, that's all right.
It's true.
It makes me wonder, though, if maybe they have more plans for this character that they didn't want.
Yeah, I mean, like, too many big name drops at once.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem like a good idea. Like,
Exactly.
it leaves it open-ended.
Makes the galaxy feel smaller.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Also, I thought it was really funny that Quarrens are still like this super greasy race that just like can't be trusted. Because I feel like they really are just in the background in the original trilogy, but then in the EU they're always like crime lords and like these like terrible greasy creatures. And that was also kind of canonized in Clone Wars when they're like trying to overthrow the Mon Calamari Republic.
Yeah,
and, like,
for sure.
They're like underhandedly like maneuvering them and trying to like scheme their way in.
Yeah,
and
even in the first episode of The Mandalorian, like the first encounter that he has in that bar is this
yeah,
you know,
he's
and he's like, is that real Beskar? And you know, they all seem to have this obsession with Beskar, but never seem to be able to take it from the guy.
It's true, hey. Well, they know the value. I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
But hey, man, don't trash on my Quarians, because I've led many a glorious charge for the Rebel Alliance in the Battlefront games. So as a Quarian character.
Oh, I
Seems like
forgot
the rebels
you
accept
can play as-
Quarrens. Like they do seem to be like second-class citizens.
Yeah, it's true.
Well, it's
Well, if they weren't so
it
greasy.
uses them as bantha food, or what are you talking about?
If they weren't so greasy. It's like, you're
I
a
really
second-class citizen because you're greasy.
Yeah. Why don't you be more of a, upstart and be a good humanitarian or something? Good member of society.
I bet you the Mon Calamari are super racist towards them. Like they make them
Probably,
like,
yeah.
stay underwater for the first part. They're not even allowed to like come up to the surface. They have to live underwater, like on Mon Cala.
Oh, you got slime on everything.
Well, this planet was actually it's a planet we've never seen before. It was called what was it called again?
Trash.
Yeah,
Trash.
trash. It could be. But I like that we've been seeing some new places that have nothing to do with previous places that we've seen, because it does kind of make there's a good balance here, because it does make the galaxy very small if they keep using the same planets over again, but at the same time it's not like they go out of their way to make everything different, right? Like, because like we're seeing a lot of similarities still with aliens and stuff popping up all over the place.
Yeah.
Hello. Yeah, but like this, I love this planet because it was like we haven't seen like an all ocean planet from what I can remember, except for like Camino, basically. So it's
As
kind of
well
cool to see it.
as I'm blanking on the name now, but Han Solo's planet, right?
Oh yeah, that had a pretty big ocean. Yeah, Corellia.
Corellia, thank you.
Yeah.
Because
Really, definitely not an
almost-
ocean planet though.
Okay, maybe it's just before the movie took place. Because at first I thought, like, just visually that we were actually on Corellia.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I saw the trailer, I actually thought this was Mon Cala, and that these were like surface floating docks or whatever, right? Like that maybe it was like a I don't know, a less wealthier part of the planet where people couldn't live underwater, and I don't know, maybe something happened because I know in the comic books like Mon Calamari has been through a lot, so it's possible maybe like the Empire destroyed most of the underwater homes and they have to kind of survive on top now before they rebuild or whatever.
Right.
So I actually thought for a long time it was Mon Cala, but it's Mon Cala, right? The name of the planet.
I think so.
I think that's right, yeah.
Yeah. So
Although, I was playing Squadrons and they just called it Mon Calamari or something like that.
That's the
Just straight
race.
up.
is it Mon? Oh, okay.
Yeah, but
I
that's
don't-
what they called the planet, so I was really confused.
Maybe I got it backwards. Maybe the race is the Mon Cala. And
I've also
I always
just
thought it
heard
was called Mon Cala. Yeah.
Yeah. Or just Mon Cal.
Mon Cala. Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
I just remember them as the Admiral Akbar people. It's a trap.
Yeah.
I just remember as the planet that I wouldn't want to go and take a whiff of the air because, man, it would smell fishy. Like,
Hey, you
super
know what, dude?
fishy.
Like I was saying, it's sushi heaven, bro.
More like dim sum.
Yeah.
Don't get in my way. I know what the Empire was thinking. They had the right idea.
Yeah, actually, one thing that kind of annoyed me when the Quarren sprung the trap on Mando and they like push the kid in and it's like eaten by that Sarlacc thing. He just like dives in and then immediately gives up and tries to get out. Like he didn't even try to kill that monster.
Not even.
Oh yeah.
They
He
should
was just like,
done a
no,
cool
I don't water.
like,
So we also
Yeah.
learned that there's sound effects of him like struggling to breathe. So his suit is not vacuum sealed, but I
Yeah,
think the other
that's
Mandalorians
kinda
were.
weird.
Yeah, because traditionally the Mandalorian suits are vacuum sealable, so they go in space.
yeah.
But the woman who dove down and actually killed that creature, I think hers was sealed.
Yeah.
Right.
But she's
Yeah,
also
yeah,
been on
and-
this planet for a
and-
while, probably. So.
When they took their helmets off, it had that kind of vacuum seal noise to it as well.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Maybe she just tried a bit harder. Took a big breath.
Yeah, it could be
Right?
that.
Mando's
Yeah,
just
he is a
pretty good
Mandalorian
excuse.
after all. He should be able to do this.
Well, if it's not vacuum sealed, he would have dove in, and his helmet just would have been immediately full of water. And we've seen that he has like like a heads up display. It's not just a lens, so he'd just be immediately blind.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one thing that kind of caught my attention, because we of course just went through all the sequel films, right?
Yeah.
With the commentary tracks. One thing that really caught my attention was all the officers on board this ship, which, speaking of the ship, popped right out of Star Wars Rebels. And the officer there in charge was this really quiet, kind of cold, calculating guy. And it reminded me a lot of the original trilogy films, right? Which then compared, like when the whole incident is happening and the ship is under attack, and then half his people get like blasted out the airlock or whatever.
Yeah.
I was like, man, this guy keeps his lid on. Like if this
was very Imperial.
If this was,
they did a good job.
Yeah, if this was like a first order officer, or like they'd be red in the face, just like screaming at people and like losing their self. Yeah, it would just be it'd just be a nightmare.
Which room did you lock them in? We locked them in the storage room control panel room. They're like, what? You idiots! What are you doing? And
Then
maybe
a higher
like
chance
shoot somebody or something.
Yeah.
Dude, yeah, I love that like classic Imperial officer like cold professionalism. Like
I like that a lot better than what they did with the sequels. It just, I don't know.
where everyone's just a cranky like tantrum child or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah.
It feels more realistic, you know what I mean? Like an actual military personnel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because they don't like just like scream at each other all the time. Well, I mean, like if you're like in a frontline unit, that's probably a little different. But you don't just like scream at each other all the time at the top of your lungs, like go red in the face. Like,
especially not the people in control, because that just tells everyone under you that you have no control of what's going on.
Exactly.
You're about to say something there, Bryce. What was it?
I'm not quite sure. I will say though that guy was excellently cast.
Oh yeah.
Agreed.
Oh yeah.
I've seen him in stuff before. I just don't remember what it was. He's been in lots of stuff.
Yeah, he did look familiar. Yeah. I can't place the face to a name, but yeah, he did look very like I've seen him in other stuff before. Yeah.
I also like the squirmy pilots and the Imperial kind of officer that was in the storage room there.
The dude. That was great.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
The first officer I've ever seen like stand to like alongside his stormtroopers.
Yeah, for sure. Just like actually they're like in the middle of the fight. Although he only took like one shot and then just like ran away. But still, he tried.
I did my due diligence. I put blaster rounds downrange.
and I didn't see that as well the second time, but I'm still 90% sure that they just shot their own stormtrooper in the back. He was standing right in front of the door. So I think they wouldn't be able to shoot the Mandalorians.
You know what?
Like through the door, because that guy was blocking the entire way. So they all would have just shot that stormtrooper.
I think we have another case here of who shot first, the Mandalorians or the Imperial officer.
Oh, actually, speaking of which, thank you for bringing this up, because a new book just came out called Star Wars Archives, right? And it's about the newest one covers the prequels, special editions, and George's version of the sequels. But the first one that came out 2 years ago was also called Star Wars Archives, episode 4 through 6, though. And that was all about the making of, the original trilogy and everything. Between these two books, I think it's the newest one that came out. There's been some clarification on that whole who shot first thing, right? And all the evidence now is pointing towards like the reason why George changed it, right?
Yeah.
Is because that's actually the way he intended it to be. Like, and all evidence actually points to that when like in this book. So I thought that was pretty crazy. Just so anyone listening, if you're still torn up about it, that's actually like from the words of George Lucas, aside from, changing it, like this is actually like the original intent.
But then why in the original cut does Greedo not shoot at all?
Well, you see, they do a lot of like they do some breakdown in this particular book, and they even have like the notes for like the edit and everything as to like what frame cuts where and what happens when. So yeah, you just look into that section, and it's pretty interesting. Like I thought that was just an interesting little factoid that came out. Yeah, and not to get too off topic, but along with the fact that Darth Maul was supposed to be training Darth Talon in the sequels and all that stuff. I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah. So it makes me wonder if George thought about that when he brought him back in the Clone Wars, if that was his intent or not. But
that'd be cool, because she ended up just being an EU character.
Yeah, and he liked the design so much that he's got a thing for Twi'leks, George, because he also
don't we all?
He got Ayla Secura's idea for Attack of the Clones out of a comic book as well that came around before the movie was in pre-production and all that. And he liked the cover, or at least the design of the character, and he's like, I want that in the movie.
He sees this Twi'lek who's like scantily clad, has next to no clothing on. He's like, just give her some lightsabers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, but we need her to be good. Make her blue.
Make it blue.
It's like, dang it, Yoda's already green.
Yeah, so I thought that was kind of an interesting thing. Anyway, this new book is out there, and it's got a lot of cool stuff in it. But,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, people online have just been posting little. Well, some people who have an early copy have been posting little like sections like online, and yeah, the thing is massive. It's like a $300 book, and it's like Oxford thick. Yeah.
Oh, so like we're talking about an encyclopedia.
Oh yeah. We're talking like this is extensive research that has never been done before. Like yeah, it's insane. A lot of pictures that never been. Yeah, everything. It's just documenting the whole thing. But
that's crazy.
Anyway, so
we didn't talk about the confirmation of Ahsoka Tano.
Oh yeah. So actually, let's get to that in just a sec. Because before that, the topic of the darksaber comes up.
That's true.
When Bo-Katan kind of whispers in the officer's ear. It came up around the time of.
It's like I knew that's what
she brings it up a couple times because she brings it up to the Mandalorian because she's like they have something that like I need to know if they have it. Blah blah blah.
Yeah, but did she ever explicitly say the darksaber? Because we all know that's what she's alluding to. Okay.
Yeah, she says it to the officer who takes that Star Wars version of cyanide, which was also pretty cool. But she says like where is it, and like I think who has it or where is it or where is he?
Well, I guess she knows that, or she's heard the rumor that the leading officer has it, and she was asking him for confirmation. Yeah,
and like where is the guy kind of thing. She's like trying to track him down. So yeah, very cool stuff because that's been another hole aside from this whole Mandalorian cult thing. That's been the other hole that's kind of been driving me crazy is like what happened to the darksaber since
How did
Bo-Katan
Imperial get it?
Yeah, cause he just pops up and he's got it, but the last time I saw it was in the hands of Bo-Katan when Sabine gave it to her in Star Wars Rebels, right? So it's like, well, all this time has gone by, we know something bad has happened on Mandalore or something because now this guy has it, and he said so himself that he did something on Mandalore and a lot of people died. So yeah, I mean, it's nice to know that all these like things are getting filled in at this point. But yeah, Bryce Dallas Howard directed this episode, which of course she directed a couple or maybe one or something like that on the first season. But she's Ron Howard's daughter. Ron Howard ended up finishing and directing Solo. But Ron Howard and George go way back, and I think Bryce Dallas Howard's like an awesome director. I think she did a great job.
I thought she did a good job too. If she had anything to do with the music, though, that'd be my only flaw. Because the music in this episode was really weird. It was very like synth.
Bryce, you pointed something out about the music too, right? What was it you said? I didn't actually quite catch it when we were watching.
I don't know. It just seemed like you'd see it on like a cheap action film, like Die Hard, or like maybe something more modern, like.
It's very 80s. Modern. I thought.
Yeah, I got a very strong space punk vibe from.
From Blade Runner-y.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I was gonna say like Riddick or something like that. It feels like that.
Yeah, I think Clone Wars actually got very creative with the music at times, so maybe it's.
Well, I don't like it.
I actually didn't mind it, but then again, I don't mind the opening logo to the whole thing anyway. So.
Guys, we must bring balance to the score.
And, to me, I don't care if I'm like changing it up and like adding some extra kind of theme to it, but it should still be like classical style music at its base.
That's fair. Yeah. Wait, you talking about the episode, right? Like the music?
Yeah. So it's like they've been adding a lot of the country stuff to it. I thought that was great, but going just full synth to me was a weird choice.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of a more heisty version of what we got in the Clone Wars finale, because I think when that came out, I mentioned, I think maybe to some of you guys, that it felt very Blade Runner-y, like the music in that finale episode when it's leading up to Order 66. So it makes me kind of call back to those things, and it's like, oh, maybe that's like a trend now with the Mandalorians. There's this, like, that group in particular, is that there was this kind of like spacey kind of vibe to it, right? I don't know, but it's interesting. That's too bad you didn't like it.
I like that, but
it's funny.
Howard does the she does that one where he's in the village, that like shrimp farming village. I think she does that episode.
Yeah, she did. Yeah.
That was cool.
Yeah, I like that one too. Yeah,
so before I forget, something I wanted to bring up. So they're like, they're raiding this Imperial freighter or transporter or whatever for weapons, and they bring this up a few times that they're gonna like steal these weapons from it or whatever, and they're gonna like retake Mandalore with it. So like I'm kind of curious, like, where are they gonna get all these like people from? Are there just like tons of Mandalorians like spread out around the whole galaxy or something like that? Or are they just gonna build their own little private army of like non-Mandalorians? Like,
it's also interesting because in Clone Wars we find out that modern Mandalorians, 99.99% of them aren't warriors at all. In fact, they're pacifists.
A lot of them during the days of the Clone Wars are. And then I'm trying to think of Star Wars Rebels, because I've seen that show maybe only twice. And it's been a while since I actually made a run through it. So
it's actually interesting how much they've really based Mandalorians on like Norway.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Vikings.
Yeah, because like they were like this Viking culture that like raided and like stole things from other cultures and brought them back. Like they would go, they'd steal stuff and then bring it back home because they didn't have a lot of like natural resources in their homeland. And then now modernly, they're like one of the most socialist countries out there. So it's almost identical what they did with Mandalorians.
Yeah, actually that's a good point. Never really thought of that before. It's also worth noting that the inspiration of Vikings are inspiring them with the new villains that's going to be in the High Republic, because big question about the High Republic is like, how's it going to work with no Sith as a main villain kind of thing. But there's supposedly this group of raiders that's going to be kind of the primary villain at this time in the galaxy. But
I'd be down for that.
Yeah, also inspired by Vikings and stuff. Yeah. But with Bryce Dallas Howard directing this episode, there was actually a very there was a shot for shot replication of when the ship is actually crashing back into the ocean or whatever it's about to.
I saw this on Twitter.
Yeah, and somebody pointed out that this is like shot for shot replicating a sequence from Apollo 11, which is her dad's film.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So I was like, this is pretty cool. Like this is, you get to see kind of like the directors paying tribute to what inspired them. And I like to think, like, as a little girl, like, her dad was like this hero making this amazing movie, right? That
maybe either that or her dad's like, well, I got you this job, so do something.
Yeah. It's like,
throw something in there for me.
No pressure. Make me happy.
Yeah. Or at the end of the day, it's like, oh, that was a great episode, but you couldn't do something different.
Could you imagine?
Pretty funny.
I don't know.
It was cool.
I
though.
thought it was pretty cool. Yeah.
And it was subtle.
It was very subtle. Yeah. Super
Yeah.
subtle. It's easy to miss. I didn't catch it until I saw the news, and I was like, "Oh, no way!"
How did someone even spot that? Like, it's only been out a couple days. Like, that's
I
crazy.
guess it only takes one person to have watched Apollo 11 within the last week and realize that looks familiar.
Are there that many people rewatching Apollo 11?
Yeah.
I have no idea. I
haven't watched that movie since like 2013.
I watched it.
I think I
about
own it. I haven't watched it. That
Oh,
many
you
times.
own it? Oh man, you haven't watched it and you own it.
Well, no, I've
don't
watched
think
it
I've
because
ever
we're
seen
talking about the Tom Hanks one, right?
Yeah.
Is that
yeah,
I think so.
13?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I own it. I've watched it like a couple times. I just haven't like watched it in a long time.
Right.
Must be like the Sheldons out there, I guess. That just this memory of like watch like the first two shots, like Apollo 11.
No, it's been a while since I've seen it too. I think it's been about 2 years, but it's a good film.
It's a good
pretty
movie.
awesome.
Yeah, I like that one.
I don't know. The last thing I kind of wrote down on my list was the whole big name Ahsoka name drop. Like she's on in a city on Corvus, a city called Caliban or whatever. New place, new planet. Never seen it before.
Interesting how it sounds like Korriban.
It does, yeah.
Or
It does.
Taliban.
Nice.
Getting something there, I think.
Some inspiration.
But have we heard of Corvus before? I feel like that's a very familiar name.
Yeah, Corvus was the name of a character from Jedi Fallen Order.
Oh, okay, I thought it maybe was a planet.
Yeah. So it's interesting that there's a planet named Corvus because I'm not wrong about that, right? That's a character.
I think
No,
you're right.
not. I think you're
Okay.
right.
All right. Yeah. Maybe. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'm just gonna leave it at that. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it was a character. But anyway, yeah. So a lot of rumors for the last year that have been circling around this particular scenario, and I just want to know what you guys think about this. Now that it's confirmed, it's coming this Friday, 4 days away. We're gonna see Ahsoka in live action.
Well,
What are your thoughts?
Unless Mando's heading towards that planet and ends up trapped with a bunch of other spiders and stuff, and then we gotta wait a whole another episode.
Oh, that's
Pretty
true.
sure
That's true.
That's what's gonna happen. Yeah.
Because now that we know the name's gonna be there, it's probably gonna be that's gonna be our Luke, and we're gonna be for the rest of the season trying to get to Ahsoka Tano.
Yeah, I could definitely see that happening. Where it's just the finale of this season will be like her walking out of a dark corridor or something.
And that's all we'll get.
I'm
And then it
calling
ends.
it right now.
I'd like to know, just in general, do you think that it's a good idea to bring in these force wielding people into the show? Because I love the idea of bringing in a live action Ahsoka Tano into anything, but at the same time, I'm just kind of worried that it would draw away from those characters that we've been.
Well, Bo-Katan would fall under that same label.
Well, yeah, but at the same time, I mean, as much as Bo-Katan, as much as I love that character, it's not like she was the main character of Clone Wars, right? And Ahsoka is the main character, arguably, of Clone Wars. By the end of the show, Dave kind of confirmed Clone Wars is through the perspective of Captain Rex and Ahsoka Tano.
Yeah,
and so it makes me kind of wonder, okay, well, this is going to be the first ever big named character that's this is just as big as if we had news that a live action Ezra Bridger was going to show up, because
well, I was just gonna say I'm pretty sure that if they're bringing in Ahsoka, we're also gonna get Sabine, because last time we saw Ahsoka was with Sabine, and Sabine is a Mandalorian, so I can't see them not bringing her in as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. And on that track as well is the fact that Dave Filoni hasn't given us any news or told us anything about any planned animated series that follows up on Star Wars Rebels, and the fact that Ahsoka and Sabine went out to look for Ezra, who was missing beyond the stars kind of thing, who shot out there with Thrawn, and it's okay, well, they're gone, but that explains why they're not around, I guess, in the original trilogy, but then there's the flash forward scene of the very last episode where it's confirmed, okay, Ahsoka's alive, she's been out there this whole time. and now her and Sabine have gone off to look for Ezra Bridger, and this show takes place 5 years after that, or at least maybe not exactly 5 years after. I don't know when the flashback scene or flash forward scene, takes place, but I can imagine that it's a couple of years later. And it's like, did they find Ezra? Are they still looking for him? Like, what's going on?
Thrawn get out too?
Yeah, are we gonna see a live action Thrawn because of this whole thing, right? Like, it makes me wonder, like, what exactly is gonna happen with this, and like, does this draw too much attention away from Din Djarin and the child?
Oh man, I hope that gets brought up. Like, someone just like asks Ahsoka, like, so did you do it? Is Ezra alive? They're like, nah, he's dead. And that's it. I just leave it at
Ultimate
That's
finale.
how they finish that show.
The ultimate finale is just going to be like Ahsoka fighting Boba Fett.
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, okay.
Call it now.
This came up a little while ago when we were watching the first episode, and I mentioned, I think this is what I think is going to happen. I think it's possible that Din Djarin could even possibly end up killing Boba Fett, or maybe vice versa, but I highly doubt that. I think it's possible that maybe we're gonna get the end of Boba Fett in this show.
I don't know. Is Boba Fett more of a villain or a hero?
That's the
I thought he
thing.
was gray.
In the Clone Wars, they painted him as this kind of reluctant sort of protagonist who was out there fighting for himself, but on the occasional job or experience, he actually did some good, right? And at first, he was hell-bent on just revenge with Mace Windu. But after he gets out of prison and he's a bounty hunter and stuff like that, he's been working with Bosk and the crew, and there's some good stuff that actually comes out of his sort of relationship with Ventress and all this other stuff. I like to think that like he isn't just a bad guy, like a villain, like I like to think he's just like what Blake said, like just a gray character who kind of does his jobs for the money. And
I saw them kind of turning him into almost like a Wolverine kind of character.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I'd be down with that. I mean,
That's
like,
kind of how he is. Like even in the EU and all the old books,
Yeah.
he actually ends up being more of a hero in the end. Like,
right.
Ends
Yeah.
up training like the twins.
Jason
Han
and
Solo
Jaina.
and Leia's one of their kids trains them, and he actually ends up becoming Mandalore as well, which
Yeah, I remember that part
Oh,
too.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
pretty insane.
um,
Yeah.
definitely more of a hero because he's like he's trying to like the whole EU part of Boba Fett is he's trying to like get money to treat his clone cancer, pretty much. That's his
Yeah.
like shtick.
Mm.
So now I'm really interested in what they're gonna do with him.
Yeah, no, I am too. And you saw all the facial scars from probably the Sarlacc stomach
Yeah.
acid or whatever.
I mean, I could see them even not even. They might
Bringing
not.
him
He
back?
might not even show up again.
Maybe
might
that
have
was
been
just
a
like an
cameo.
Easter egg. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Watch them
Yeah,
make a whole series just on it.
that's a lot of like bringing Tamora Morrison in for a little cameo like that and then just leaving it. Like I doubt that we're not going to see him again. Like I'm pretty sure it's been built up to this moment that we will, but that's just my
stealing the
speculation.
thunder from our main character.
That was
the
my
thing.
worry.
That's the thing, and that's also kind of my question that evolves around Ahsoka Tano showing up, because she was the main character of like the entire Clone Wars show. Like Boba Fett popped in that show quite a few times, but like she's like the main thing, right? Like she was dominating television on Star Wars for years, right? Like, and there's a lot of fans, there's a big group of fans that grew up with that show, or even jumped on, when it was already out for a little while. And that to them is Star Wars, right? Like that's the way that maybe even they were introduced to Star Wars was the Clone Wars and this character Ahsoka Tano. And don't get me wrong, she used to be very much a hated character up until the midway point of the show, and then I think people started to kind of jump onto the fact that this character is actually like pretty cool, like kind of likable. At least that's
She
what
got a
happened
lot
to me.
less annoying for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Even if you go back now and rewatch the first couple of seasons, just like, ugh.
Yeah, it's pretty snippy.
Yeah.
and you know,
Hey,
it's the
Sky
same
Guy.
yeah. It's the same with Ezra Bridger though, except towards the end of.
And I never got over that one.
I never got over Ezra Bridger though. I don't know if it was just because
It was shorter of the show.
It was
maybe.
shorter. He had less time to kind of capture my attention. I think honestly, it just came down to the maturity of the show was geared at a younger level of audience, like slightly, like we're talking like 2 years. But you know, 12 to 12, the difference between 12 and 14 is pretty significant when you're looking at, you know, just the maturity of kids and media and whatever, right? But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think if she shows up, it's gonna have to be handled pretty well.
Yeah, I think if anyone can do it right, it's Dave, and I trust Dave to do that. I really do. I think he's very keenly aware that Mando is the main character, and I don't think he's going to let the other characters come in and push that out. I don't think so.
Yeah,
I think
like
it's
it's all just gonna come down to like how they portray the characters and stuff like that, and like where they generate the focus. Because like with this episode, right? Like you were saying that, like, sorry, I don't remember her name really. The Mandalorian chick that's like,
Bo-Katan.
yeah, she wants to take back Mandalore or whatever, right? And she's already been in Clone Wars, so they could have potentially had like a character there, kind of like upstar, like the Mandalorian as we know him. But I think they did fine with it. Like it wasn't like, oh hey, you're gonna hang out with us for like the next like 5 episodes and tag along while we take back Mandalore. It was like,
and they become
no.
like a side character, and he's like showing up around every corner by them.
But no,
speaking of which, though, before we move on from that, I just wanted to mention that it was hilarious when they're like trapped outside the doorway. They're like, "There's too many of them. What are we going to do?" And they're all just like, 10,000. 8,000! Oh, we're all gonna die! They're just standing there not doing anything. So Mandalorian just like, I got this! And you think he's gonna do something amazing? He just runs out there and just gets shot a whole bunch, just like falls to the ground. I think it'd be funny to see a supercut of him just dying like a pleb.
It's actually an elite move. That took years of training to figure out.
Just to run out.
I think it's honestly kind of a missed opportunity in this episode to have shown off the Mandalorian kind of like wrist shield things that they had in
Clone that would have been cool.
Yeah, because we've got those now in Battlefront 2. We've also got them in we've had them in Clone Wars for quite a while, and I forget if they showed up in Rebels at any point, but it would have been cool to see that effect happen because I kind of like those little tiny like bubble shield
the
things
shields.
Yeah,
I think the first time we saw them was in the original animated series, and there was on Dirge. Dirge had them when he was fighting Obi-Wan.
Yeah, he had the little red ones. Yeah,
Dude,
that's
I hate
right.
those things.
Sorry, are we talking about the Halo bubble shield or
in Battlefront 2, it's kind of a mimic of it, but
it's like
the shield that happens on the heavy. On the heavy trooper. Yeah. So it's a bit like
I know what that is.
But yeah, the Mandalorians in the show, they have like little kind of wrist ones that they can activate. Yeah. So it's happened a few times where they've brought them out, and
interesting.
Yeah, they did do the yellow blaster bolts though, and I really
saw that. That was cool.
That was very much appreciated. Yeah.
I've always thought those kind of personal hand shields are a bit too like high tech for Star Wars in general. Like the droideka, like I can.
What about the Gungan? The Gungan shields.
Gungans can have shields.
Well, at least
no one else.
No one else.
At least with the Gungan shields, they acted like there was like an impact from the blaster bolts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Also, they had like a metal frame.
Like gooey
shields.
Metal
frame.
That's true. That's true. What about so do you like or don't like droideka shields?
No, I do like those because they're kind of built behind the shield. Like
it's like a bubble.
Yeah, it's like and they are a robot, so it makes sense that they can power this like.
They're a massive heavy robot.
Shield.
Droid,
yeah.
Like droid, not a robot. Droid.
Sorry.
They can be a robot.
Basically a robot. We'll say droids.
Yeah, like Gungans, because the Gungans, they basically are modeled after the Zulu, right? Those kind of like African round shields.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, kind of. Those shields
I
weren't
just
so
think it's a
great, though.
bit
Those
too
shields
much.
didn't work out so great for the Zulu. Just throwing that out there. They're like, what's that? A bullet traveling at like how many feet per second? Oh yeah, our shields will block that. Nope.
Cloth ones.
They're like,
How'd it
voodoo
work out for
magic.
the
You're
Gungans?
fine.
About
You're
the same.
fine. Don't worry about it. Oh wait, they all died. Whoops.
Yeah, but like to me, it's kind of like you're throwing too much cool gadgets on like an already cool thing, and it just becomes
Yeah.
like a bit too much.
That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, because they got everything. They got like the wrist knives, the jetpacks, the missile launcher.
Beskar steel.
Just invincible armor. Like they got everything.
They have a lot, yeah. That's why certain GMs don't like people playing Mandalorians.
Yeah, that's right. You talking to me or you talking to Bryce?
Yeah,
I'm talking to both of you guys.
I don't mind you playing a Mandalorian. Just again, you're not getting Beskar armor up.
But it's a Mandalorian. Hey,
Doesn't let you do it.
Don't name him like Maverick Space Star or some shit.
space shooter.
Or just Boba Fett. Or wait, Boba Fett has Mandalorian armor. Never mind.
There you go.
What?
He's Boba Fett's best friend.
Yeah.
the Feet brothers.
There you go.
There's always a Mandalorian in every goddamn game.
Yeah, it's true. They're popular, man. They're so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty awesome. I think that's why everyone loves Boba Fett so much, because he's just the cool, like, he's the Buzz Lightyear of the Star Wars universe. Everyone wants a Buzz Lightyear, like, you know.
I mean, I wanted a Woody,
All
but
right.
you know, whatever.
Did you go for Halloween as Woody anytime?
Ooh, pretty close,
I dressed up
man.
as Buzz Lightyear for like 3 years in a row.
I've got a Stetson on my bookshelf right now that I have worn, actually.
That's so funny.
That was
man.
Stetson wasn't cheap either. I got it in Arizona.
Oh man.
I wasn't here for the last 2 episodes. Where do you guys kind of rank them among the episodes you've enjoyed, more or less?
That's so hard to do. I gotta say the last episode was probably my least favorite so far out of the season.
Really? I didn't think it was that bad.
I don't think it was.
I thought it was
bad, but
alright.
if
It wasn't like
It was
I
a
don't know.
filler. It was a filler.
Yeah, like I didn't feel like that, like it was that new to me, because you know I've watched the Alien movies many times, so it was kind of just like a throwback episode for me. Like, oh hey, this is Star Wars. This is as close as we're gonna get in Star Wars to the Alien franchise.
It did establish some important things, though. Like now we know that there is a New Republic that's actually patrolling parts of space.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, that was,
I like
was a
that too. Yeah,
cool
I
thing.
did enjoy a lot of the references in there, and then of course, you know, Dave pops up again as his pilot. Trapper Wolf is his name.
Yeah, of course it is.
We went over that last week. But yeah, no, to answer, I at least for me, that one, not that I didn't like it, but it was not my favorite. It's really hard to choose between this episode and the first episode, though, because of course we had the big name drop in this one being like Bo-Katan, and of course Ahsoka now is mentioned. But
the first episode also had 20 minutes on this one.
The first episode was great because also it paid off that terrible Aftermath book that I had to get through, and completely made Cobb Vanth like
That's
legit,
true.
right? Like they made the character a thing that actually wasn't just there for like a couple scenes. He was there through like the whole thing, and they totally like brought in Tamar Morrison as Boba and everything, and made him alive. And I was like, this is awesome. And like Create Dragon, like it's really hard, honestly, for me to actually rank these 2 episodes. Like,
yeah, I think the first episode's still my favorite because I'm a big movie monster guy. And the Crate Dragon, that was kind
I think it's pretty cool. Yeah.
Really sick.
Yeah. Yeah. What about you, Bryce?
I actually, this episode is actually my least favorite.
Oh, really?
Oh, really?
Yeah. I just thought it was a little bit bland for me. I don't know. Like I feel like I've seen Mandalorians before already in the show.
Right.
I mean, it does some cool stuff. Actually, maybe it's kind of tied with the last episode, but first episode is my favorite. And I'm not going to take credit for this because this is when my girlfriend and I were watching the last episode. She kind of made a prediction of what was going to happen in the episode. And I was like, oh, that's definitely what's going to happen. and it didn't end up happening. And I was like,
Oh, really?
what the heck?
What
Your
was-
idea was so much better than like
Oh no!
what actually
It ruined your view of the episode.
Yeah, it honestly
you gotta
did.
try and
yourself
ruin
too
this for me.
pumped.
Try and ruin this for me. What was the prediction?
Yeah, you gotta know.
So I'm pretty impressed with this. That's why I can't take credit. So at the start of the last episode, basically they say, we got to travel sublight because hyperspace kills these eggs, right?
Mm.
That's the whole reason they have to travel sublight, but it doesn't really go anywhere, right?
Right.
Like other than that, they just travel sublight and then they go to the next planet. They crash as a result, but it doesn't really go anywhere. So the whole time little Yoda, he's eating all these eggs, right? And he's just like downing them in like one go. And what my girlfriend thought, she's like, okay, here's what's gonna happen. At some point in this show, they're gonna be forced to go into hyperspace. All right, and they're gonna go into hyperspace, and all the eggs in the little backpack, they're all gonna die, and it's gonna be super sad. But right at the end of the episode, little Yoda just barfs up all the eggs. And he saved the day.
That's actually pretty great.
The real main character of the Mandalorian.
Yeah, and I'm like, they could have still done all the monster stuff, gone through that whole thing. And, because this is usually what they've been doing with Yoda in the first place, is that he's kind of been like this goofy baby, but he just kind of ends up saving the day somehow in the end.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'm like,
He
that
didn't really
would've
do
been
anything this
That would have been
episode.
so fun.
That's a good prediction. I actually like that a lot.
Yeah, but instead, like Reid, I think mentioned earlier, he's just like a monster. He's just killing all of these babies.
Yeah. I briefly saw on Twitter that there was a lot of people really angry about that, and
a lot of people were.
People started like boycotting Mandalorian because of it, because they're like,
Oh, brother.
yeah, this is the thing, like Baby Yoda just like committed genocide.
No way.
For killing of things. Like,
From what I read, they were even wrong about what they were mad about, because they were saying that they were really mad because the frog people said it was the last of their species. But if you actually watch the episode,
it's the
it
last
says
line.
it's the last of her family line. Has nothing to do with the species. So it means the species is fine. It's just her personal family bloodline. So they were wrong about what they were boycotting. Just saying.
Yeah, I think is a dumb boycott either way. But
Well, apparently this
Thinking of the
episode
movie.
they forgave them because of Bo-Katan, I guess. So
Yeah, I guess so. I was expecting him to get paid, but I guess the reward was that he gets taken to the planet that the Mandalorians are on, I guess. I don't know.
the not information, because he sends this. Okay, so the guy's like, "Oh yeah, bro, I know where the Mandalorians are." Sends him into the bar or the cafe or whatever, and then there's like, it's like, "Oh yeah, hey, I know a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy," and they take him out, and it's like, "Well, I'm just gonna kill you," and then the Mandalorians just show up. I was like, really, like, okay, like, thanks, bro, for nothing. Just like brought at least most of your offspring, like, have cross freaking sublight space.
maybe they've killed other Mandalorians, so that's how the word got out. So there's like it's like a trap they've set to get a bunch of them.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So that's pretty much all we got, I guess. But yeah, thanks for coming on, guys.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Guess we'll
Yeah.
we'll
Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, always, yeah, and thanks Bryce for dropping in.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah,
Glad
I
to
guess-
hit all these consecutive. I'm glad I haven't missed one yet, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Right?
guys, he's been here every week. He's just been listening.
You guys would never do one of these without me, right? Right?
Never.
No, man, no,
no way.
you've been
No
all-
way.
Thanks.
All right, see you guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Adios.
All right, guys, thanks so much for coming back on the show. And for all of you guys listening at home, thanks again for tuning in. And I hope you are enjoying our Mandalorian Mondays, or Mandalorian nights, I guess. This episode actually dropped on Tuesday, but we're going to try and drop them on Monday going forward, just because, weekend, and people just want to talk about Mando as soon as the weekday roll around, because over the weekend online, if you hadn't heard about it, fans just trying not to post spoilers online. I think Monday's kind of the rule breaking day, finally able to post those spoilers online and what else. So I'm gonna try and drop those as soon as possible, because of course it's only another couple days before the next episode comes out. So lots to look forward to. And if you guys are able to give us a hand, 5-star rating on iTunes would be spot on perfect, as well as anywhere else you can rate the podcast. Just please do us a favor, and if you can do a 5-star, that would be amazing. And thanks again for tuning in. Feel free to contact the show. We'd love to hear your voice. If you have any questions or comments, drop us a voicemail at the voicemail link listed in the description. You can find us on Twitter at SWEscapePodcast, and our email is theescapepod@outlook.com. We'll see you next week, and may the Force be with you.